Hello everybody, welcome to this amazing Tyde guide of the truth of true damage. I've been playing MOBAs for a long time, and for the longest time, I was always told that true damage always dealt the damage it said it would. It could not be mitigated, resisted, or stopped unless you were immune to all damage. However, recently someone brought it up to my attention, actually a couple of people brought it up to my attention in the comments of a video when I stated that true damage could not be mitigated, that true damage indeed could be mitigated. And I was like, really? So instead of saying, no, that can't be right, I spent way too much time in this MOBA, I actually took a couple of minutes of my life and went to go figure this one out. I even looked up the wiki to see what anyone ever said about true damage, and from the sources that I could find on the Smite wiki, it states that true damage could not be mitigated by any means, and we couldn't have been more wrong. So let's take Bakasura and Osiris for example. We're going to use Bakasura's Butcher Blades to deal true damage, which at max level it deals 70 true damage per basic attack while the Butcher Blades are active. Osiris is one of the few gods that I know that can mitigate damage through either passives from his tether, the passive of his passive, because, you know, dropping armor pieces and whatnot. Plus, we're able to pick up the active ability, Shell, and we'll be testing all these to see if true damage can indeed be mitigated. So let's take a quick look at Butcher Blades. Against Osiris, without any of his armor pieces missing, so no type of mitigation, we're just going to activate Butcher Blades and hit him, showing that we are indeed dealing 70 true damage with no mitigation. Alright, so now let's look at Osiris's passive, that for every piece of armor missing, he mitigates physical damage. So activating Butcher Blades against Osiris with all of his armor pieces missing, you'll see that I'm still dealing 70 true damage, and this is because Osiris's passive only applies to physical, where true damage is a type of damage of its own. Therefore, it does not get affected by magical or physical defenses. Next, let's take a look at the passive of Spirit Robe. It's one of the few items in the game that provides damage mitigation, so any god could really pick this up. When you are hit by a crowd control ability, you are given 15% damage mitigation, and I have Fist of the Gods to activate his Spirit Robe. So once we activate Butcher Blades after his Spirit Robe is active, you'll notice we're actually having our true damage mitigated, which means that even though true damage goes through protections, damage mitigation applies to all types of damage, including true damage. Now, with Spirit Robe actually providing damage mitigation, let's take a look at another item that has a passive that does damage mitigation, and that's the Bulwark of Hope. Though this item is particularly to fight against magical opponents, you'll notice that as it is active for that 1 second, damage mitigation takes effect. Therefore, Bulwark of Hope even mitigates true damage as well. Now looking at Osiris's tether ability, as long as he is tethered to an opponent, he gets damage reduction. And when we hit him with true damage during this time, you'll notice that my damage is not being mitigated, but I am dealing less than the intended amount, which is 70, which means that damage reduction and mitigation are different, but they still both affect true damage. Now, just for the sake of it, let's test a couple of things together, such as the Spirit Robe passive and Osiris's tether, and we'll see that the damage and the mitigation all kind of take effect there. So damage reduction takes place and the mitigation, completely dropping my true damage. Before we wrap this all up, let's take a look at a few other things that deal true damage and test them out as well, just for the sake of it. First, Serket also has true damage in her ult. Her ultimate prevents healing and does true damage. However, you'll notice that when Shell activates, her damage is mitigated and it does decrease the amount that the opponent takes in. Now looking at Chang'e, we're not looking at Chang'e's true damage, we're looking at an item called Soul Reaver, which deals additional damage. It does not specify the type, but I'm going to assume that because here I demonstrate that it is not mitigated by any means, that activating Shell will also mitigate this additional damage, which we will call true, just for the sake of it. all in all, I know that this testing was kind of almost pointless, but hey, it was kind of fun to see what could really stop true damage. This really changes how I perceive true damage to be, being that I thought Bakasura was almost unstoppable. But this makes sense as to why it is easy to fight Bakasura as Osiris. I never considered the tether to be a counter to Butcher Blades. Additionally, the way that true damage works, there are certain gods that can fight back, and that's kinda cool. But now that also brings Shell into mind. When I fight someone with true damage, I could always pick up Shell, and that will help reduce the damage. But will I really get it for true damage all the time? Probably not, but this is important information when you have to fight someone like Osiris who can do damage reduction. Now, I am sure that there are other gods that have damage reduction in their kit, and if they do, those are the gods you'll want to watch for, as they can damage reduce anything you have, including true damage. Thank you everybody for watching. I hope you found this informative. I most certainly did. There's not a lot of true damage in this game, so make sure that you understand that percentage health damage is not true. It can be mitigated, and it will determine whether it's magical or physical based on wherever the damage source is coming from. For example, Nemesis ult deals 50% of current life in physical damage. Keep that in mind, as someone with a lot of armor will mitigate that damage heavily. So also, we're going to be looking at penetrations in the next Tyde guide coming up here shortly. I've been working on it very hard, and then we'll also be looking at the reflection damages and how that is all calculated in fancy jazz. I'll be getting a bit of my information from what they call the Word of Thoth, a guide that was created, I don't know by whom or what, but I will put a link in the description below for you all to check it out. It has the formulas about everything you could really ask about this game, except for true damage. I didn't see anything in there. God damn it. But anyways, I now know about my true damage, and hopefully you all do too. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, good game.